Deep in the Atlantic Ocean, far off the coast of South America, lies one of the most feared places ever created by man, Devil's Island. A prison built not to hold inmates, but to erase them from the world entirely. From the moment someone arrived, the island announced its purpose. The air was thick with humidity, disease, and the smell of decay. Towering palm trees hid dense jungles filled with venomous insects, fever-bearing mosquitoes, and predators that hunted at night. Every direction beyond the shoreline whispered only one truth: no one escapes. The prison itself was a fortress of misery. Stone cells barely large enough to lie down in. Walls dripping with moisture. Tiny barred windows that never let in enough light, but always let in the sound of crashing waves. Waves that reminded every inmate how far they were from civilization. And in those cells, men were left alone with silence and their own unraveling minds. Food was scarce, often spoiled, and rationed like punishment. Many prisoners grew skeletal within months, their bodies failing long before their spirits did. Disease spread through the compound like a shadow: malaria, dysentery, and infections that had no treatment. If the guards didn't break a man, the island itself usually did. But what made Devil's Island truly terrifying was not the prison walls. It was the sea. Surrounding the island were violent currents capable of dragging the strongest swimmer under in seconds. Sharks circled the waters, drawn by centuries of tragedy and bodies lost to the waves. Even if someone managed to slip past the guards, the jungle and the ocean stood waiting, a perfect trap designed by nature itself. Yet, despite everything, stories spread among prisoners. Stories of inmates who vanished into the trees at night. Stories of small rafts found drifting miles away with no one aboard. Stories of footprints on distant beaches, leading nowhere. No guard ever confirmed these whispers, but they refused to die. Some claimed the jungle swallowed escapees whole. Others believed a few actually succeeded, slipping through the barriers, navigating the deadly waters, and vanishing into the world forever. But whether these tales were truth or just hope, nobody knows. By the time the prison finally closed, Devil's Island had become more than a place. It was a legend, a symbol of isolation, cruelty, and the extreme lengths a government would go to break a human spirit. Even today, the island stands abandoned, the stone cells overtaken by vines, the jungle reclaiming every corner. The waves still crash against the rocks, carrying echoes of forgotten voices. Life on Devil's Island was not just punishment, it was a slow erasure of a human being. Every day felt identical to the one before it, as if time itself refused to move. Prisoners often said the island didn't kill you quickly. It simply waited for you to give up. At dawn, guards would blow their whistles, and the men were forced into the blinding heat. The island's thick humidity made every breath feel heavy, as if the air itself was pressing down on the lungs. Work was constant: clearing brush, hauling stones, cutting wood, or simply marching pointlessly in circles just to keep them exhausted. Rest was rare, food was barely edible, and medical care was almost non-existent. Even the strongest men eventually found themselves weakened, dehydrated, and burning with fever. But the physical struggle was only half the torment. The greatest enemy on Devil's Island was isolation. Silence grew so loud that it became a kind of madness. Many prisoners reported hearing voices, but they weren't sure if they belonged to other men or to their own deteriorating minds. The endless sound of crashing waves became a reminder. Beyond this island was the entire world, but none of it was reachable. Escape was every prisoner's dream, but also their greatest terror. The Atlantic Ocean surrounding the island wasn't just water. It was a powerful, violent force. Strong currents, unpredictable storms, and shark-infested waters acted as nature's prison guards. Anyone who dared to escape had to make a choice: die slowly on the island or die quickly in the water. Despite this, a few men still tried. They stole pieces of wood, tied makeshift rafts together, and pushed into the ocean in the middle of the night. Some were caught almost immediately. Some drowned within minutes. And others simply vanished, their bodies never found, leaving behind only rumors and hope. Guards would often mock the idea of escape, telling new prisoners, "The ocean is hungrier than we are." It was true. Yet one man would challenge the island's legacy more than any other: Henri Charrier, better known as Papillon. He became the symbol of defiance, a prisoner who refused to let the island swallow him whole. His courage and relentless attempts to escape made him legendary. But before he became a myth, he was just another prisoner struggling to survive the unbearable conditions of Devil's Island. The island wasn't only feared for its brutality, it was feared for what it turned men into. Those who survived long enough often became shells of their former selves. Some lost their memories, others their sense of identity. The French government created Devil's Island to break criminals, but in reality, it broke far more than that. It broke human spirits, erased lives, and turned a remote rock in the ocean into one of history's most notorious symbols of suffering. And yet, against all odds, a handful of prisoners would attempt what everyone believed was impossible. Their stories, and their fate, became part of Devil Island's darkest legend. As the years dragged on, Devil's Island took more than the prisoners' freedom, it took their sense of reality. Days blended into each other until men forgot what month it was, or even what year. Some stopped speaking altogether, their voices worn down by years of silence. Others muttered constantly to themselves, trying to hold on to memories before they slipped away. Every prisoner had a breaking point, and the island seemed designed to find it. The relentless heat during the day and the chilling winds at night created a cycle of discomfort that never eased. Even the sound of the jungle, a constant chorus of insects, birds, and distant crashes, kept the men from ever feeling safe. No one slept deeply. No one dreamed of anything but escape. And yet, as hopeless as everything seemed, the human spirit is stubborn. Whispered stories passed from cell to cell about men who planned to flee. Most were fantasies created to stay sane, but a few had real intentions. Prisoners studied the patterns of the tides. They memorized guard patrols. They experimented with rafts made of coconuts, tree bark, and stolen planks of wood. One thing gave every prisoner hope: the belief that someone had escaped before. Even if the stories were exaggerated, even if the ocean swallowed more rafts than it spared, the idea of freedom kept men alive. The guards hated those rumors, because hope was more dangerous than any weapon. A hopeful man would attempt the impossible. A hopeful man would risk his life. But escape wasn't just a physical challenge, it was psychological warfare. The island made prisoners doubt themselves. They'd stare across the crashing waves and wonder if there was anything left for them on the other side. By the time many prisoners reached Devil's Island, their families had moved on, or forgotten them, or believed they were already dead. Some prisoners accepted their fate, convincing themselves that survival meant surrendering to the island. Others kept fighting quietly, waiting for the smallest chance. A starless night, a distracted guard, a missing patrol, a shift in the tides. Those tiny variables meant everything. Meanwhile, sickness was always waiting to strike. A small cut could turn deadly. A fever could burn for days without treatment. The island punished anyone who showed weakness. The strong were broken slowly. The weak were broken quickly. And yet, through all this suffering, a legend began to grow. The story of one prisoner who refused to give up. A man who endured solitary confinement, starvation, and endless punishment, and still kept planning his escape. Each failure only pushed him to try again. Prisoners whispered his story with awe, as if he were proof that Devil's Island wasn't invincible. The guards tried to crush his spirit. They transferred him, punished him, isolated him. But no matter what they did, he still stared toward the horizon, imagining a raft slipping past the rocks and into open water. His persistence lit a spark among the other prisoners. If he could survive everything the island threw at him, maybe they could too. And whether the legend was true or exaggerated, one thing was certain: Devil's Island was no longer just a place of death and despair. It became the stage for one of the most daring escape attempts ever imagined. A story that would echo far beyond the waves surrounding that cursed rock in the Atlantic. For decades, Devil's Island was a graveyard of forgotten men. They arrived hoping to survive, but most left only as whispers on the wind. The guards used to say the island didn't need walls, because the ocean was the only guard that never slept. But one prisoner refused to be broken. While others stared at the ground, he stared at the horizon. He studied every tide, every storm, every secret the island whispered. He survived punishments that crushed others, solitary, starvation, endless labor, and emerged, still planning. To the guards, he was a nuisance. To the prisoners, he was hope. He knew a simple raft wouldn't survive the coral reefs. So he observed the currents, noticing a specific channel that opened during the full moon, a path northwest. He began collecting scraps, bark, planks, coconut shells, slowly building a strange, buoyant platform. The guards barely noticed. Escapes were a joke. The island always won. But on one moonlit night, he dragged his creation to the shore. Pushing off, the waves swallowed him. He resurfaced, clinging to his raft, as Devil's Island finally began to shrink behind him. His story became a legend, a testament to the unbreakable human spirit. Thanks for watching.